welcome to Everyday Law. It's the show that demystifies the law for you and your family. I'm your host, Attorney Robert Monahan, and I'm here today with the State's Attorney of Lake County, Mike Nerheim. Thanks for coming, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Now today we're going to talk about the Lake County Opioid Initiative, which is a program that you helped start. And can you tell me a little bit, well, first before we get to the Opioid Initiative, I don't think everyone knows what the state's attorney does in Lake County or any county.
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't. And, on TV shows, oftentimes we're referred to as the DA or the district attorney.
The district attorney. In New York, it was the district
attorney.
Right. Yeah.
So in Illinois, we have to be different, and we call them state's attorneys. So essentially, I'm the prosecutor for Lake County, and every county in Illinois has an elected state's attorney. And then depending on the size of the county, there may be a number of assistant state's attorneys that help him or her in their job. A lot of counties in Illinois, there's an elected state's attorney, and that's it, or maybe one or two assistants. Up here in the northern part of the state, where Lake County is the third biggest county in Illinois, so there's actually 142 people that work in our office that help me do what I have to do every day.
So you're the top prosecutor in Lake County.
Yes.
You handle all the prosecutions, except some that are farmed out to local municipalities and villages.
Right.
A little bit, but you also handle representing the county in civil cases.
Right.
So injury cases on county property, for example, or contract disputes with the county and other local governments, right?
We're sort of the civil law firm for the county. Correct. Yeah.
So you won your election, your second term, in November of 2016, and before that you won in 2012. Is that right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So you're on your second term, and when you were running, before you ran, you were a criminal defense attorney.
Right. So
before that, go ahead.
Yeah, I was an assistant state's attorney in the office right out of law school, and I started in the traffic unit like everybody else and sort of worked my way up through, and then I went into private practice and worked as a criminal defense attorney.
I've had Mike on my radio show before, and I found out his whole history. That's why I'm kind of cutting it short here. But Mike, you started working in the state's attorney's office of Lake County while you were in college, right?
I did, yeah.
And you did every job from filing papers and answering phones to prosecuting murder cases.
Right. Okay. That's back when they had typewriters. I think I started there, but I love it. It's a great office. It's kind of like a big family. Yeah. And but most importantly, the work that we do is.
And you left that office to go into private practice. And how long were you in private practice before you ran for state's attorney?
6 years.
6 years. Okay. Yeah. And while you were in private practice, I think we started talking about, you noticed the opioid epidemic before it became a hot and button issue.
Yeah. This is something, it's been coming. It's been slowly sort of brewing. Yeah. And if you go back to 2008, 9, 10, you can see this issue coming in our community. And even
you saw it coming from clients, right?
Absolutely. I had a little firm in Waukegan, a couple of people in our office, and I would lose a few clients a year to heroin overdose. And it seemed to sort of come from out of nowhere, because back then you would think heroin, where is this coming from? And it just slowly started to grow. And then when you get into 2008, 9, 10, and of course up until now, it just continues to grow.
That's really interesting.
This is an issue that doesn't just affect Lake County. This affects every community in the country, and it's one of the biggest issues we're all dealing with together. And you use the word epidemic, which is a word I use often, and it's not one that, I know it's a heavy term, but it absolutely applies to this
What I've read on the website of the Lake County Opioid, is it the Opioid Initiative, lc.org? What is the Lake County?
It's lcoi.org.
Okay. Yeah. And it said, something I read today was that I think more people die of opioid-related cases than car accidents or other kind of, it's the leading cause.
Car accidents, gun deaths.
Yeah.
It's in fact, when you look at opiate overdose deaths nationally, while we're here talking during this segment, 2 people are going to die. 4 people an hour on average are going to die across the country, and that's how significant this is. And it is right here in Lake County. It's in every community in Lake County. I think when you certainly look at Lake County, we have everything. We have such a diverse community. We have some of the wealthiest communities in the country. We have poor inner city type areas. We have rural agricultural areas and everything in between. And there's not a portion of Lake County that's not affected by this.
It's like a microcosm of the country.
Right.
Lake County could be a microcosm of the country. and opioid epidemic is affecting the whole country.
Absolutely.
And when you decided to run for state's attorney for the first time, and it must have been in 2012.
Oh, it was 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Around 2011. This was something you wanted to bring to the attention more of Lake County, right? I remember you said when we met for coffee that you would go to Rotaries to speak about it, and people would be like, "What? What?
Yeah.
What?"
When I first was elected, because this is really one of the issues I wanted to take on, and I
Yeah.
thought as state's attorney, it's something that this is a position that allows me the ability to really go after this. And before I was state's attorney, I'm a father, and I live in this community, and I worry about my own kids and the effect this has on families, because I've seen this devastate good families all over the county.
It's not just a crime issue. I
No.
mean, it's a family issue. It's a health issue.
Right. It's a public health epidemic that we're going through, and so I wanted to take it on as a state's attorney, and going back to 2010, 2011, I knew this was something that we could dig into.
You saw the train coming, the locomotive coming, and you wanted to. It's one of the things that motivated you to run.
Right.
It would give you a platform to bring this issue more public attention.
Right.
And you could use your influence as the state's attorney to develop a program here in Lake County to address it.
Right.
Is that right? Okay. All right.
Officially as a state's attorney, you're the top law enforcement official for the county. I don't even really know what that means, but I do know that I have the ability in this position to bring people together.
Yeah.
I also know that I'm not smart enough to fix this on my own.
It's
but
a
I
collaborative
can
team
bring
effort.
people in to help.
That's nice.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Now, one thing that I know about you is while you were running for office, you were at the county fair and you met Chelsea Laliberte, who started a nonprofit called Live for Lolly. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So Chelsea is, we've come to become dear friends, and she's somebody that I have a lot of respect for. And she, at the time, had very recently lost her brother.
In 2008, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
to an opiate overdose. And, she was a young person on her way to have a career in marketing, and this totally devastated her entire family.
Yeah.
And I give her a lot of credit because, the way she reacted to that was to step up and to start this non-for-profit organization to help bring awareness and help people. And it has become, in the past 4 or 5 years, one of the most well-respected, well-known organizations in the country in this regard. But when I first met her, she was at the Lake County Fair, and she had a little booth set up. And again, this is back when nobody wanted to talk about this, so she's kind of back in the back corner. Nobody would talk to her. I was running for state's attorney, and we met, and this was something that both of us were really involved in.
You knew about it because you had seen clients affected by it, and you'd seen it in the community.
Right.
And she knew about it because her brother had died,
Right.
so you had that connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And she said she started out just hoping to raise some money in Buffalo Grove, where she lives, just hoping to raise some money in Buffalo Grove, give it to the treatment centers, and go from there. But after you won for your race for state's attorney, you decided to have a meeting, and you invited her and 2 others to the meeting, right?
Right. So we sat down at a table like this,
Yeah.
and there was 4 of us. It was myself, it was Chelsea, it was Bruce Johnson, who is the CEO of NACASA, which is an amazing organization here in Lake County that does behavioral health. And then George Folenko, who was the head at the time of the Major Crimes Task Force and a chief in one of our departments. So we're all coming, the chief from a law enforcement, we had a treatment provider, an impacted family, and then myself. And we just sat and we thought, okay, how can we grow this table? Because this isn't a law enforcement fix. This isn't something that the private sector can fix on its own. We all have to kind of come together. So we decided to just literally grow that table out. And today the Opioid Initiative it's recognized nationally as a model for how to deal with this issue, and we have over 300 plus members.
Multifaceted approach to the problem.
Right. We have treatment providers, every treatment provider in the area that you can think of, all of our hospitals, our faith-based organizations, law enforcement. We have DEA. We have our locals, our state, our county lawmakers. So we have county boards, state rep, state senate, U.S. rep, U.S. Senate. And these are folks that come to meetings. We have corporations like Walgreens. You name it. We have just regular people that are wanting to make a difference in their community. We have people in recovery. it's an amazing group of people, and I'm involved in a lot of different groups, and we've all been to meetings where you just sort of go to a meeting and nothing happens.
Yeah.
But this is different. This is we meet monthly. We meet at College of Lake County. In every meeting, and this has been going on for 4 years, there's more people, there's new people, and it just continues to grow, and the excitement and the passion is just amazing, because here you have a group of people that have all come together that are united on their belief in how we can work together. We don't always agree on philosophy, but we all are united in what we want to do.
It's very bipartisan. I spoke to Melinda Bush today about the program. Melinda Bush is a state senator based, she's in Grays Lake. I'm not sure which district she's in. But,
I can't remember the number, but it might be,
something like that. But I remember talking to her, and she's helped work on several legislative acts that have come out of your meetings, right?
She's either at every meeting or has her representative there, and it's so nice when we can say, hey, we need a piece of legislation drafted to address this issue, and literally walk across the room and hear, and things get done. And you have Democrats and Republicans working together. Egos, politics, all that stuff gets set to the side, and we just get things done. And it really feels good to be a part of it.
Yeah. She said something. Do you remember Lolly's Law? I think it says something like Narcan is available for homes where they need it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So there's a lot of different legislation that's come out, and House Bill 1 was kind of the big omnibus bill that first came about that really had a lot. I mean, it's about this thick if you print it out, but it's got all sorts of little tweaks to kind of combat this issue from different angles. And
wait, is House Bill 1 all about opioid issues?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that we continue to build upon that.
Okay.
Some of the legislation that she's working on now is a prescription monitoring program.
With the database. She told me a little bit about that, yeah.
Because a lot of how we've gotten to where we are has to do with overprescribing, and overprescribing opiate pain medication. And I always have to caveat saying I'm not opposed to opiates, I'm not opposed to pain medication, I'm not opposed to prescription medication. There's a very legitimate use for those things. But the problem is we have been overprescribed, we as a society. The United States has 4.6% of the world's population. We consume over 80% of the opiates.
I read that statistic.
And so there's a problem there. And that's sort of how we've become, how we've gotten to the issue that we're in.
I read a great book about this opioid issue called Dreamland, and it weaves 3 stories together. Kind of the story of the decline of middle America, especially after the Great Recession.
Yeah.
The story of drug gangs coming in with black tar heroin, and the story of the pharmaceutical and medical industry prescribing these addictive drugs that cause people to seek out heroin when they can't get it anymore from their doctor.
So the black market on the street for opiate pain medication is in some areas about $1 a milligram. So what happens is if somebody's prescribed these pills and they develop this addiction, and now they're seeking to feed that addiction, and every part of their body is telling them they need this, which is why there's a criminal justice angle here, because at some point they're going to do things that they wouldn't normally do to commit to get this drug. So you can pay $30, $60, $80 a pill, or you can drive down the road and spend $5-10 for a bag of heroin and feel the same way. And that's how we have seen many situations where, straight A students, people, you pick the stereotype. Captain of the football team, great athlete, everybody, great family, but they fall into this. And that's one of the things we really work hard to try to overcome is the stigma, because a lot of people, when you hear heroin, you have this image that pops up, and people want to say, well,
Ray Charles from the movie, the musician, the junkie, whatever, right?
Somebody in a back alley with a needle
somebody
in their arm.
Under an aqueduct or a viaduct or whatever.
And people want to say, well, that would never happen to me, or that will never happen in our family or our community. And the reality is I've sat and talked to wonderful parents from great families, great communities who have lost children to overdose death, and it's not their fault, and they weren't bad kids. These aren't bad families. This is and that's why we really focus on the disease of addiction component of this.
How is it? So when I think of a prosecutor, you're the top prosecutor in Lake County. I think of a hard-nosed kind of put him in jail and lock him up kind of guy. You're not that kind of guy. It's more of a compassionate approach. I think Chelsea said really nice things. I mean, she said that you've made Lake County safer, healthier, more compassionate, and that she explained it because I asked her this. She said people make their mistakes, they pay their debt to society, and then they can get on with their lives.
That's our hope.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
I know I'm a prosecutor, and I know prosecutors generally, people have this perception of, you know, that we just sit around and we think how we can send people,
Lock up the bad
how can we
guys.
send people to prison? And you know, the reality is
It's a
we.
much more nuanced approach to crime,
Well, I think
but
it's,
more effective, I bet.
I think it's a smart way to approach it, and I think when you look at the drug epidemic as a whole, and not even opiates and heroin, but all drugs, and law enforcement has always traditionally focused on trying to reduce supply.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, for these drug dealers, it's a business. They don't care about anything but making money. And if you're trying to attack a business, you need to look at, you know, good old-fashioned supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
And we being law enforcement, have always just really been concerned about supply reduction. So that's going after gangbangers, going after drug dealers, and that's, I should say, something that we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I didn't mean
very
to say
aggressively,
hard nosed.
right?
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that. Yeah, go ahead.
When it comes to that segment, we are going to continue to be very aggressive, but I also believe that we have to be just as aggressive with reducing demand, because we can arrest a drug dealer, take him off a corner. Tomorrow there's going to be another one there, and the next day, and the next day. Why not try to take the customers away, right? And not only is that, I think, a smarter approach, but it's also a much more human, you know, this is,
It's a more compassionate.
it's the right way to
It's
do
a
it.
nuanced approach to a difficult problem that hasn't yielded to the other approach, which is kind of a brute force lock 'em up method.
If you take somebody addicted to drugs, it's suffering from this disease, and you put them in jail or prison, you're not helping anything, because they're going to get out at some point, and that whatever's caused them to use this substance, whatever issues they're dealing with are not resolved. So they're going to come out, and what are they going to do? They're going to use again.
The guy's going to be waiting with the black tar heroin or whatever it is right when he walks out the door, right?
Right.
Yeah.
People are statistically much more likely to die of an overdose after coming out of jail or treatment, because they haven't used. Their tolerance has gone down. The cravings are higher than ever, and they're going to go use the same amount they used last time, and you know, it's deadly. So we can do this revolving door where we take people, we arrest them, we put them in jail, they come out, we arrest them, we put them in jail, they come out, or we could try to break that chain and treat them, and because the vast majority of these people would never have any contact with the criminal justice system but for their addiction.
That's interesting.
And that's how this helps keep our community safe.
And I think there's three prongs. If we have time, we want to get to three prongs.
Sure.
One is prevention, one is harm reduction, and the last is treatment.
Yeah.
Right? So those are the three prongs of kind of the initiative, the opioid initiative. Is that right?
Yes.
More or
Yeah.
less?
Yeah.
So when you talk about education, what does the opioid initiative do in Lake County to educate people as far as the risks and the warning signs and so on?
So education's a big part of it, because
Yeah.
everything we've talked about up until now, so we've been talking about the problem and some of the things we're doing about it, but it's really hard. This is such a tough addiction to treat. I mean, this is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So
I've
the best
read
case
that about,
scenario,
yeah.
you know, the best case scenario is let's stop people from going down that path in the first place. And that starts with obviously educating youth, getting into schools, and not waiting until high school. I'm talking about middle school or even grade school.
Because that's where it's starting now,
Right.
from what I've read. It's
Right.
starting in middle school. Yeah.
And you have to and you can't just go in and do a seminar and say, you know, okay, we've done some drug education, let's move on. It has to be repeated, has to be continuous. You have to start early and keep it going all the way up and through high school. We also have to educate parents. We have to educate doctors and physicians. We have to educate ourselves. We have to educate our community. You know, earlier in the segment, we talked about how earlier in 2010, 11, 12, I would be speaking to some community group. And I'd talk about heroin, and they'd be looking at me like, what are you talking about? Well, today, because everywhere I go, I'm always beating this drum, and now usually I'll get a room full of nodding heads. And that's sad, because they're nodding their heads, not because they're nodding their heads because either they or somebody they know has now been personally affected by this, and it shows how quickly this has grown.
Mike, on our block, in our neighborhood, there's a house for sale, and they're having trouble selling the house because their two children both died of opioid overdose.
Yeah.
Overdose of heroin. Their two sons went to Libertyville High School, good kids, got involved somehow with their friends. I don't know, but they're trying to sell a house because they want to move and just get out of that house where their sons died.
I've met with a lot of those folks, and these are devastating scenarios. You can't even imagine as a parent anything worse than losing a child. And I can't stress enough, these are good families. These are good kids.
Yeah.
And it scares the heck out of me as a father myself.
When you talk about harm reduction, what kind of things are you talking about there? I mean, needle exchanges, the availability of naloxone. Is that how
Well,
you say it?
naloxone or
Yeah,
Narcan
yeah.
is, but basically when we talk about harm reduction, it's sort of a short term, how can we help save somebody's life now?
Yeah.
How can we address this issue now? And
Yeah.
it's, we're not talking about education, we're not talking about prevention, we're not talking about long-term treatment, we're talking about dealing with something now.
You mean after the problem has started?
Right.
And what to do about it now that the problem has started?
So an
I see.
example,
That's it. So there's like a timeline.
I think a classic example of a harm reduction strategy that we're working on and have been is naloxone, which
Yeah.
is the overdose antidote.
Yeah.
So think of like an EpiPen, or they come in nasal applicators. But if somebody's experiencing an overdose and naloxone is administered in time, they will literally bring them back.
Resurrect someone.
So go back about 3 years now, and the Opioid Initiative, and I have to give our police officers a lot of credit in Lake County, because they stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to these scenes, we're standing in somebody's home while somebody's kid is literally dying at my feet, and we're waiting for the ambulance to get there. And sometimes that 2 to 5 minutes could be life or death. Now the ambulance is going to come and they're going to have naloxone. And this is not any fault at all of the ambulances, because they're typically responding from a fixed location, a fire department, whereas the police are out patrolling. And they said, give us naloxone, let us have it. And we were able to get about $4.5 million worth of this product donated to the county.
Walgreens that did that?
No, well, it was Hospira initially.
Okay.
And then a company called Avizio, they make Avizio, which is an auto injector. Kaleo is the pharmaceutical company. But they donated a lot of this product to Lake County. Our health department stepped up and they train all the officers. So literally overnight, we've been able to equip every officer in Lake County with naloxone. And to date, there's been over 150 lives saved in our community, where police are getting there first, giving that injection, and the person's coming back. Now, when I talk about short-term, long-term, that's a short-term fix. You've literally saved somebody's life.
You resurrected them from the dead.
Literally.
Yeah.
But what's happened is those people are taken to the hospital, because what naloxone does is it essentially wipes all the opiates off of the receptors. So you go from, whatever high you're feeling to, it's gone, right? But you're alive.
Yeah.
So they're taken to the hospital, and oftentimes, unfortunately, these people are released within hours. And what is the first thing they're going to want to do? They're going to want to go get that high back. And I'll tell you, of that 150 people, there have been repeats. There have been situations where an officer has literally come save somebody's life, and within hours they've overdosed again. So and we knew that. We knew that this wasn't the ultimate fix. This is just a piece of the overall strategy. We have to save their life, because you can't treat somebody that's dead. So let's save their life, and now we have to work on getting these people into long-term treatment, so they're addressing the addiction, and then whatever issues they're having that has sort of led to that.
Is that the Gateway centers that are in, you said Lake Villa and maybe?
So Gateway is one of our partners. We have a program called The Way Out, which is something that we worked on to build, and Chief Gunther from Mundelein Police Department really spearheaded this effort.
What is The Way Out? Because I read about it. It sounds really interesting.
It's really, this is something I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
I think this is the future of law enforcement's approach to this. And what The Way Out does is it recognizes that everybody that deals with addiction, whatever issue they have, whether it's alcohol, meth, crack, heroin, pills, or combination thereof, everybody has these windows of, it might be 4 in the morning and they wake up and they say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm
sick of this life I'm leading, or whatever it is.
And they really legitimately have decided on their own that they're done. They want help. But where do you go at 4 in the morning? There's so many resources in our community, but a lot of people don't know where they are. So what The Way Out seeks to do is capture those people when they've decided that they're ready and help get them into treatment. And we looked at a program out east, and Chief Gunther, he worked really hard for a long period, about a year, to build this thing. And the nice part about the Opioid Initiative is all the players were there, all the hospitals were there, the treatment providers were there, the health department.
Your meetings,
we're all at the table.
You're talking about what do we do?
Let's get this done.
What do we do with the guy that wakes up at 4 a.m. and wants to get out of this addiction, but doesn't know where to go?
Right. So we have great programs already, like drug court, veterans court, mental health court. We have great diversion programs, but all those programs require that you get arrested. So you get arrested, you're prosecuted, and then there's somebody like me saying,
that's really interesting.
right?
Yeah,
There's somebody like me
we'll
saying,
give you a break and send you to diversion
Right.
court to help you.
right,
But you have to be arrested.
Right, and
it's like when you need a refinancing, you have to go into foreclosure. Yeah.
So we thought, hey, why don't let's prevent them from even coming into the system to begin with. Let's not arrest them. Let's get them help.
Yeah.
So and it's voluntary. So you come in the door. It could be 24/7. You walk into a police station and basically say, help me. I'm here for the Way Out program. There's no like magic. You don't have to have like a password. You just come in and say you're here for the program. If you want to take your drugs, your paraphernalia, and give them to the police, as long as it's voluntary, they will not arrest you. They will pick up the phone. There's a screening process.
That is so interesting. Go ahead.
So they're initially screened and eventually they're routed into treatment. Ability to pay is not an issue.
Yeah.
Everybody that comes in, we've been able to find treatment for. Started to talk about Gateway. Gateway has been a huge partner of ours.
Let's just step back for one. So No Way Out is the name of the program, right?
A Way Out.
Oh, A Way Out.
Yeah. We don't want to say No Way Out. We don't want to be pessimistic. Right.
A Way Out is the name of the program. That's a Freudian slap.
Yeah.
A Way Out is and someone wakes up at 4 a.m. or whenever he wakes up, and essentially turns himself in to a police station,
right.
And there'll be no charges,
right.
Because he's trying to recover, and that's where he should go.
Right, and the police, it's the last place, we know, this is the last place a lot of these folks would think to turn for help.
Right?
But the police are there, they're all invested in this program. We have 7 participating police departments that are entry points, but you can come from anywhere. You don't have to be from those 7 communities. In fact, we're going to add 4 more here pretty soon. And again, they're routed into treatment. And as I was saying, Gateway is a huge partner, and a lot of our treatment is done through Gateway. They're out in Lake Villa. They have an inpatient facility, and they provide wonderful care. And they've just been, I can't say enough about that organization. So again, this is everybody working together, and law enforcement has completely bought in. And here's the kicker. There's no funding for this. We don't have a big magic pot of money that we're using to run these programs. This is just a group of people that really care about an issue, that are trying to think outside the box and work together. And if a Mundelein police officer needs to drive somebody to downtown Chicago, they're going to do it, because they realize that in the long term, they'd rather do that than drive them down to the jail, which is probably where they're going to go anyway. And then they're just going to have to keep dealing with this person.
Mike,
so let's help
made me think Lake County is a really special place.
I like to think so.
With law enforcement, our legislators, our state's attorney, you working together to solve something that's an epidemic in the country. We have to sign off now. It's been a half hour already. It goes quick.
Yeah,
it goes quick, right? I think you could talk a lot more about
I'm sorry.
this.
Yeah, I could talk a lot.
You did a great job, though. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
I'd like to have you on again.
Anytime.
It was a fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
And you've been watching Everyday Law with me, your host, Attorney Robert Monahan. Tonight we were joined by Mike Nerheim, the Lake County State's Attorney. Thanks for watching, and everybody have a good night.